All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Buff Show. Today we have Athena Fox. I love your name, by the way.
Thank you.
That is cool.
I always get compliments on my name.
Yeah.
Most people are like, you have like a rock star name.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe I'm in the wrong business then.
Right.
I just haven't found my niche yet.
Are you related to Megan Fox?
No, I don't believe so. Maybe distant cousins or something, but not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. So Athena's here, and we're lucky to have her. She's with Nook and Cranny. Nook and Cranny is one of the inspection companies we use quite frequently and recommend here. So Athena, can you give us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, how long you've been in the business, kind of your background and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I've been with Nook and Cranny going on 6 years. Only marketing with Nook and Cranny for the last 3, but I am a mother of 3 and I am a grandmother of 5.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That is
so
awesome.
yeah, it's definitely a second full-time job and one that I would never miss out on. It's amazing actually. So.
Yeah. No, that's fun. What got you into like the home inspection business?
So it's kind of crazy. I actually was working at Maverick, and it was the Maverick by Troy's house.
Yeah.
And I've always been a people person. So I knew every customer by first name. I worked the morning shift, and they would always come in, and Troy was like, how do you feel about coming and being my office manager? And I was like, okay. He's like, I don't have an office yet. And he didn't have an office.
Yeah.
He had 5 home inspectors.
Oh, wow.
And this was back in 2017. And he came to me 6 months later and he's like, are you ready? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I had
cool.
office jobs before that and I was a bartender. But yeah, I went in and I started with Nook and Cranny and I've loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. So let's break it down simple. Some people might not know exactly what a home inspector is. Like, what is a home inspector? Why are they there?
So to me, a home inspector is like going and seeing your general physician, your family doctor.
Yeah.
So what they're there for is to give this home a physical checkup. So the home that is going to be your forever home, because people walk in and they're just like, oh my gosh, this is the one. This is what I need. But some people think that maybe they shouldn't get a home inspection.
Right.
And I would definitely not recommend that. Like you should always have a home inspection done.
Yeah.
So they'll go in, they'll give the house a little physical checkup.
Yeah.
And then they're going to refer you out to preferred contractors if there's things that they come across that they feel like need more of an in-depth look.
Yeah. Like roof or structural stuff. Or
Yes.
like
So
that.
they obviously know what to look for, the good and the bad things, so that they can note those in your inspection report. But they're not
like
specialists in those categories,
Right.
so they refer you out.
Yeah.
So at the bottom of all of our reports, there's a preferred contractor list somewhere that you can follow up with these people. These are the people we've worked with throughout the years and would recommend that you contact to have those in-depth looks.
Right. No, that is awesome. That's a good explanation. It is like a general, like they're very good at a little bit of everything and they know what to look for, the signs.
But not perfectionists or specialists in those trades.
Yeah,
So.
they couldn't like quote like, oh, your new furnace is going to be exactly this much.
No.
We got to do this and this. But they'll tell you if it's running right or not.
Yes, yeah. So they'll check those things and make sure that like they note, hey, this one hasn't been serviced. Like the last sticker that we found, it was 5 years ago. So maybe that's the first thing you should have is your furnace looked at in depth, because they can't tell if there's like a cracked heat exchange or anything like that.
Yeah, so I'm going to take it back even further. So like we're talking about buyers, they get a house under contract, and then typically you have like your due diligence process. And like back when the market was hot, there were buyers waiving that. But it's still a good idea to still have a home inspection done just to know like
Peace of mind.
what you're getting, right?
Yes.
And there's still negotiations that can happen during the contract, especially if you're in due diligence. Like if you find out, the roof's bad or something is really wrong with the house, like you can renegotiate. There's a ton of different things you can do to make the contract more in your favor.
Right.
But yeah, some people don't think they really need a home inspection,
to me, it's something that I definitely recommend. Like you can call your home inspector, the company, and have them give you a little rundown of what the process is like. Like our home inspectors, all of our inspections are the same, the start to finish. They check over 800 items in the home. They check the roof, the foundation, the HVAC, the electrical, the plumbing, and all of our reports include infrared photos, 360 photos of every room. So when you go and you look at your digital report that you get, you can actually click on the 360 photo and virtually see what was in that room at the time of the inspection. So you know what could be inspected versus what couldn't be inspected.
Right.
All of our inspectors, they're not allowed to move personal belongings. So the buyer should know, hey, if somebody's living in this home, there are going to be some things that can't get inspected because we can't move the couch. We can't, we don't know what's over here under this dresser or behind this dresser, things like that. So they need to take those things into consideration. And then that's when like a mold test could come into play, because maybe there's mold behind these stack of boxes in this one room, but we don't know. Because without the mold test, you're not going to know if there's actual mold in the home.
No, that's a great point. So what all do you guys cover in your inspections? Like, I know you have kind of your general inspection, but then there's like add-ons that you can do.
So additional services include meth, mold, radon, sewer scope, and then also we have a certified inspector to do septic tanks. So
awesome.
There are homes out there that need a septic tank inspection, and you can request one of those.
No, that's cool.
We do have 2 certified commercial inspectors as well. So they're certified through Carson Dunlop. And so you can ask for that, because a commercial inspection is completely different than a home inspection.
Yeah, so let's break it down. The general inspection, because a lot of times people will be like, well, what should I get? And like, what are the costs of these? And it depends on the size of the house. But general inspection is like basic overview of the whole house, the components, the furnace, the HVAC, electrical, plumbing, all of that. And they really test it. Like they'll run all the water, flush all the toilets, check if they're leaky, open all the doors and windows.
Yeah, and we've had cases where because they put a stopper in the tub and fill it up and then drain it. And then maybe that tub doesn't get used, but then they find leaks during that home inspection, especially with the infrared. Because they'll go downstairs and around any plumbing fixture, the sinks, toilets, the dishwasher, they check all of those things with infrared imaging so they can tell if there's moisture detection.
And so explain more infrared, because some inspectors don't have that capability.
And some don't include it with their home inspection, so they charge an additional fee for that. So the infrared imaging, they use it around the heating vents as well to tell, because they turn on the furnace. The only thing that doesn't get checked always is the air conditioner. So if outside temperatures are below 62 degrees, we're not allowed to check the air conditioner because it can ruin the condenser. And we don't want to be responsible for ruining a condenser. So that's one thing that all of our inspections have an inspection agreement sent out with them. And that inspection agreement goes over, hey, if there's snow or if it's raining, the roof's not going to be checked during your home inspection. You can always request that your inspection be moved to a later date if you know what the weather's going to be like. Or you can also have a reinspection done. It is $50 to have an inspector go back out on a different day, but then you're getting that. You're not missing that in your report.
But they also check, like on the roof, like they're in the attic, they're checking things out. So it's nice they're able to check out both sides. But that infrared is super nice because you can see moisture, the heat. Like I've seen them use it.
Hot and cold spots. So if there's missing insulation, they'll be able to detect that in certain spots of the home.
Yeah, that's true. And like on appliances, like the range, like do all the heating elements work and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's awesome. So you have your general inspection.
We have packages for the additional services.
Okay.
So we have Utah's most popular, which is meth and radon.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's $200. Maybe it's $215. It's somewhere around there. The office knows all of those pricing, but so it gives you a discount when you combine those two services.
Right.
So you save $50 when you combine those two services.
So let's jump into like what is meth and what is radon?
So meth testing, and all of our guys have been trained by Ann Atkins, who owns Meth Mob, to where to test.
Yeah.
So they take 3 samples and then they put them into a tube. And what they do is they go out and they swab, and then they put those in, and then they take them to the lab here in Salt Lake City, and the lab determines how much meth is present.
Mm-hmm.
Radon testing, they'll go in and they'll place a monitor. We try to go out 2 days prior to the home inspection to place that monitor so that you can have your report the same day as you get your digital report.
Yeah.
We also have a package that's meth, radon, and sewer scope. And so you save about $75 when you combine those tests.
Yeah.
And then we have our healthy home package, and it's meth, mold, radon, and sewer.
That's awesome. So I see buyers all the time do, like, I always recommend meth. We actually had Ann Atkins on here yesterday, and she said, like, the national average for a home to have meth is like 1 in every 10 homes has meth.
Yeah.
And Utah's even higher than that.
Yeah, we are like one of the higher per capita on the scale. I think we're like maybe 3 or 4 somewhere on the scale of.
That's what she said.
For meth use, which is scary and sad to say. But yeah, if we're up there, why would you pass on that?
Right.
Because meth doesn't disappear.
No.
Like if you don't have it decontaminated, it's going to be in the home. And if you don't test, you don't know.
Right. And then you risk when you go to sell that house down the road, you just inherited somebody else's problem that you couldn't resolve.
And so, anybody that ever asks, I'm like, always get a home inspection. With that home inspection, always have a meth and radon test done, because those things you don't know without testing. And back east, Troy is part of a mastermind group of home inspectors from all over the U.S., and they meet quarterly and discuss things. And I've found out that back east, you can't even list your property without having a radon test done.
Oh, wow.
So it's a requirement by the state. And then, so if you have high radon levels, you're responsible to have that mitigation system put in place before you can sell your home, before you can even list it.
Yeah, that's crazy. So let's talk a little bit about radon, because a lot of people, like, I'll mention meth, and they're like, meth? Like, and it's like they didn't hear me, or they're like trying to interpret a different word. Right. I'm like, no, meth the drug. Like, people do that in the house, and it's you can't smell it, you can't see it. Like, the only way you can find it is if you test for it, and if you find it, it's a big deal. Radon's another one, and that people don't really know what that is. But what is it?
So radon is the breakdown of uranium and granite, and it causes a gas.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks, okay, well, radon, obviously, you're going to find granite and uranium in the mountains.
Right.
So, yeah, you have a higher concentration level, but where do we get all the backfill that we put under the homes? We get those from the mountains.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
So we haul it out to these different areas throughout Utah. And a long-term exposure causes lung cancer. So it's the second leading cause of lung cancer throughout the United States.
Wow. Yeah.
And obviously, first would be smoking, but the second leading cause, and it's odorless, it's colorless. You don't know if it's there unless you test for it.
Right. Yeah. And that's, so we have like numerous clients that have tested for that. Sometimes it's high. I think they go up to the level 4, and I don't know exactly.
Yeah, so it's
ratios.
picocuries is what they determine it or break it down by. And anything above 4.0 needs mitigation. And then long-term exposure. Obviously, you can go into an older home and you feel that draft.
Yeah.
But all the newer homes these days are built tight.
Sealed tight,
Yeah,
yeah.
sealed tight. So then Radon Awareness Month is actually January, but right now we're starting it early. So right now, if you call our office and schedule in the month of December and January, we'll give you $25 off your radon test.
Oh, cool.
Normally those are $125, so you'll get it for $100.
Yeah.
But because everybody's in their home in the winter months, so you're going to get the highest levels of radon in your home in December, January.
Yeah. And if any of, like, if you are purchasing a house, it comes back high with radon or meth, like all of this can be mitigated and taken care of. Like,
Right.
And that's a key point that Ann and I were trying to point out yesterday was like people think like, oh, I can't buy a meth house. Like if there's any sign of meth, like we're out.
Right.
But, like,
and a lot of people do.
Yeah,
like
they
even
do.
if it, because 1.0 is safe for a child in the state of Utah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, this one has a detection of 0.3 or 0.5 or something like that. And
It'll blow up a deal.
Yeah. People are like, I'm done. Nope.
And I was like, Ann, so what, like, give me like a real life example of like what that ratio looks like. And she's like, so if you're on a football field and if it's 0.1, it's like a kettle, like a popcorn kernel.
Okay.
Crushed up and like spread out over the football field. She's like, that's how much like meth is in that house. And so I'm like, so like a 1, like that's like the state is saying, or the health department is saying, hey, that's safe, right?
Right.
And it's super low, but like I've seen deals blow up under that. And we went, you'll have to watch that if you have questions on meth. Radon, similar. All of these can be like taken care of fairly.
It's
fairly
not
easy.
like end of the world type of situation. Like you can have this mitigated, cleaned up, and that home can be your forever home, and you'll be safe.
Yeah, I think on radon, like we've done a few radon mitigation systems, and they're like anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. Like
Right,
for most of them.
and now in new construction, they can actually build a system that's modified and concealed inside the home, so you can have it built during construction and then have a fan added if you obviously if you have radon, because they recommend that you test for radon every 2 years, retest,
Right.
because it is the breakdown. So it's over time that your radon levels rise.
Gotcha.
So
That
you
makes
may not
sense.
have radon when you move into a home, but 2 years later, you could have a level that needs mitigation.
Yeah. And then how about sewer scopes? That's so like my main ones. I'm like, if you're gonna do, like,
Anything that has a home at least 20 years or older, definitely have your sewer inspected, because that's besides your roof, I feel like your sewer is going to be the next costly, the most expensive cost to fix.
Yeah, it's huge. And so like I'm always recommending general inspection, meth, radon, and sewer scope, and they add up. But it's just like such a peace of mind when you know when you go to buy the house that you've like covered all your bases.
Right.
And like I even had a deal this last year. It was a new construction built in 2014, and right after closing, the sewer line collapsed.
Oh, wow.
And it actually, like I've seen it happen quite a bit where even on new homes, like where the sewer lateral connects with the house, when they backfill all that dirt, sometimes that dirt as it settles,
breaks
it'll like
it away.
break it away
Oh,
and
wow.
shift it down. So I don't know. And I had another one last year where these people bought this new house it was in a East Layton neighborhood, and there was an older house that was on the property before that they took out and demoed. Well, they connected the new sewer lateral to the old one, like in the middle of the yard, and we
my
found out
goodness.
that, and we're like, well, only like half the sewer line is new, and the other half we're going to have to worry about down the road. So we ended up getting some money off there. So I guess, like in my experience, like it's always good to test, even on new stuff, like just to see if they did it right. Like,
Well,
is it
and we do
flowing
have
out?
those occasional earthquakes here in Utah.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we were doing tons and tons of sewer scopes after that one out by the airport. Because, and anything in that general area, we actually offered free sewer scopes.
Yeah.
right after that happened because it can wiggle everything loose as it's underneath the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's goes back to peace of mind.
Yeah.
Like it's checking your main sewer line from the home out to the street because obviously once it reaches the street, it's a city problem.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
they're responsible for fixing that after that. So
and I'm pretty sure Dominion Energy has, or HomeWise, somebody has a program where you can actually buy insurance for your main water line and your sewer line, depending on where you're at, which is cool. So I recommend that to some clients too.
Right.
It's like $10 a month or something.
$10 a month compared to I can only imagine what it costs.
10 or 20,000. Yeah.
Right.
It depends on if it's through the middle of your driveway, you're like, great, now I have to do a whole new driveway. It can get really costly really fast. So we got meth, radon, sewer scope, and mold. So mold is one that I don't know if I've ever had really clients test for it. It's always been pretty apparent to me if the house has mold or not, but I just
usually you can see signs, or if there's been a leak in the home, maybe you might want to have it tested.
Yeah. But recently, or it smells like you walk into a house and you're like, oh, there's like a musty smell. Like it smells wet, and then you see it and stuff. But we had this deal recently with some clients in Heber City, and they found mold in their house after, and it ended up being like this huge ordeal. So I'm now like, check it all,
Right? Get that healthy home package and cover all ends.
Right.
I mean, you're better safe than sorry later on finding out. And mold, people are always like, oh, well, black mold. It's not necessarily just black mold.
Right.
There's like 50 different types of mold, and the lab can break down the spore count after a mold test is done and tell you how many different types of spores are found in the home, because some of them are just dust and allergens, skin cells, different things. And obviously, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but on the news, when they do pollen counts and stuff like that, they'll actually tell you what the mold count is as well that's in the air. So it's mold.
It's just naturally in the air.
Yeah, it's naturally everywhere, and the spores attach to your clothes. They carry inside. They come in with your pets, different things like that.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be some type of mold in your house. And when they break those down, mold affects everyone differently. So if you have respiratory issues, you're obviously going to be affected by a lower count of mold spores, as opposed to a healthy person that has no respiratory problems.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing. Mold, as opposed to meth or radon, there's no limit or a recommended level in the state to have it mitigated or have it fixed. So when you get a test back, it's like this scientific breakdown that I can't even read. Like we have our mold guy, our Jeffrey, and I'm just like, hey, this guy's great. He can tell you everything if you have any concerns in this. I'm looking at it and it's a bunch of numbers and a bunch of words that I can't pronounce.
Right.
And he'll tell you, yes, hey, you should probably have something done about this, or this is a big problem, and this is going to affect healthy and unhealthy people.
Right. So how does that test look? Is it just like kind of like a radon test that they bring in?
So it's actually a vacuum.
Oh, interesting.
And they set up this vacuum that sucks in air through a tube into a little teeny canister. And that canister they seal off afterwards, and then they take it to the lab, and they do three tests. So it sits at a location for about 15 minutes. So they'll do upstairs and downstairs, and then they always do a control sample from outside so that they can have something to compare it with. So the control tells you, because like I said on the news, they always tell you how much mold is out in the air.
Yeah.
So that way they have the control sample. They do the two, either east and west or north, south, whatever sides of the home, but then they compare it, and then they have a general idea. Unless you actually know that there's mold present, then they'll just do the test right at that area. So you know how much mold is present right there, because that's how you're going to detect if there's mold behind a wall, because there's nothing out there. We don't have x-ray vision or a crystal ball, and there's nothing out there that can say, hey, there's mold behind this wall, especially if you're not seeing anything present on the outside of it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So those are the main tests that you guys do.
Yes.
I know there's other ones that, like lead-based paint we were talking about before, and then asbestos.
And those ones you actually have to hire a certified decontamination specialist to come and test for those. A homeowner, it's a little weird. The homeowner can test for those things and actually take it to the lab, but a home inspector will be fined $25,000 if they try and test for those things and take it to a lab.
That's crazy.
So yeah, always check into certain things like that. And there's decontamination people out there that can come in and test it for you.
Yeah.
Take the samples for you, because obviously with asbestos, you don't want to just start scratching at something, because it's also a spore and it attaches to your lungs, and then it doesn't go away.
Right.
So you're going to have health issues if you do it. So I know that when they did test for it, they would wet the surface before taking a sample so that it doesn't break off into the air.
Yeah. We'll have to link those contacts in here as well, so that if people want to have lead-based paint or asbestos or something like that tested, they can. Give us like a cost breakdown, I guess. It depends on like the size of the house, but what do you see normal for like your healthy home package, or like if somebody's buying like a 3,000 square foot house? Do you have a rough idea?
3,000 square feet, I believe it's about $415. And all of our home inspections are broken down by square footage. They start at about $275 and go up from there.
Yeah.
So those ones are always determined by that, but we do, like, our packages have set prices. I believe $575 is the healthy home package. And then, and that one's meth, mold, radon, and sewer. So you're actually getting like your meth test for free. Because I know you save over $100 when you get all 4 services on top of your home inspection, just so you can save a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Because it does start adding up and getting a little costly.
Well, and if you have, like, if you try to hire independent people out, so if we were to hire you guys to do the inspection and to come do the meth test, and then
a plumber to come do your sewer scope,
it gets expensive really fast. So it definitely makes sense.
And then you also got to coordinate times, because the seller doesn't want to be put out.
No.
As little as possible in the process of getting the home inspection and all that done. So unless you're coordinating everybody to show up all at the same time, it's probably best that you have the home inspector do it.
Yeah.
While they're there.
When I see it, it's not uncommon for somebody to be $500 to $1,000 in inspection fees to inspect their house. So, but that's like a cheap insurance policy and like peace of mind.
Yes.
On knowing what you're getting. And then a lot of times you'll get this massive inspection report back. How many pages is yours?
So the only time we ever print the inspection report is if somebody requests it. Yeah. And it's usually somebody that isn't very tech savvy.
Right.
And they want that. And so we do offer it. But I would say those reports probably
like 50, 50
plus pages. Yeah. And so that's a thick book if you really want it. And so it's all digital usually, and it's emailed to you right from the house right after your inspection. And so you have the capability to look at it right from your phone. And I always recommend, don't just go with what the inspector has gone over with you at the walkthrough, because that's a 30-minute time frame, and there's no way in 30 minutes he's going to have time to go over everything. Right. And all of ours are color coded, so recommended repair or replace, or have a specialist come out and go over this and dive down deep into this specific thing. Yeah. So always have your clients read the full report, because there are things that he didn't go over that are in there that probably need a little attention before you purchase the home.
Right. And it's nice when you get that report, because you invested $500 or $1,000 into like your due diligence, but now you have like all this knowledge on the house and a lot of things that the seller might not even know about their house.
Right.
And then you can go back to them and be like, hey.
Well, because they've lived there. And so the little things just kind of, oh, no, like, it's fine. It's fine. You get comfortable in your home. And so when people point those things out, they're like, no.
Yeah.
Like they kind of get defensive about it because they've lived there.
Right.
And I grew up in this home. It's fine.
Right. But then if it's like, oh, it needs a new furnace, water heater, roof, and like all that wasn't knowledge before when you made the original offer, you actually have, like, you can go back to them and be like, hey, we're going to need an extra, like, couple grand off or something here to make this, like, more of a win-win. So that's the cool part about that due diligence process. If you have that in your contract, like, you have that time to really get to know
negotiate
the home
those things.
And then negotiate. And I tell my clients, look, you're never, like, even if you buy a brand new house, you're never going to buy the perfect house.
Right.
That's like flawless. So expect some things, but like if you're buying this house and you're paying a premium and it needs a new roof and furnace and AC in the next like few years, then that's probably a bargaining point that you could go back to the sellers and be like, hey, this is going to be like, 30 grand in the next year or two.
Right.
What can we work out here?
Right.
And so that's always good to have. So what does the process look like if somebody hires you guys? They call you, hey, we have this house under contract, and then what happens?
So they can either call our office or they can schedule online. That's available too, 24/7. And that breaks down every question that the office is going to ask.
Mm-hmm.
But when they call our office, they'll usually get Christy on the phone. We do have an answering service, and I apologize, they're not the greatest.
Yeah.
So
But it's somebody
nights
that
and
answers,
weekends,
yeah.
if you're really wanting to schedule, go with our online service.
Uh-huh.
But they'll call, they'll get Christy, and she'll just ask them the details of the home. So what is that home? What is the address? And then we
Yeah.
can usually look up all the other details. They're going to ask for the client's name and their email and telephone number. They're going to ask what agent they're working with, who's representing you.
Yeah.
And then we will reach out to the listing agent and confirm with them that this date and time works. We'll call the client back or call you back if it doesn't work with the sellers. Most of them are pretty excited that they've got somebody that wants to buy their home, so we can work around things. But then they'll ask them, okay, well, are there any additional services that you want to add on to your home inspection?
Right.
Like the meth, the radon, the sewer scope, anything like that. And then they'll inform the client that they'll receive an inspection agreement within a couple hours. So read through that agreement. It tells you all the things that might come into play. Like, hey, if it's going to be snowing, we're not going to be able to go on the roof because our insurance doesn't cover the inspector up there because it's not safe.
Right.
And also, if there's personal belongings blocking the attic or the crawl space, like if it's blocking that, we're not going to be able to inspect that. And so we try to inform the listing agent the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, make sure if there's a crawl space or if there's an attic hatch that needs to be inspected, that the clients move those things.
Right.
The sellers move those things and prepare the home for the home inspection.
Yeah.
And then they'll get the agreement, and in that agreement, they'll be able to digitally sign it. If they need to pay with a card, there will be a link for payment in there. But if they want to avoid any convenience fees, they can bring cash or check to the walkthrough and go over when the inspector goes over the walkthroatu process with them. So.
And then how does the walkthrough process look like? Like, does the buyer need to be there the whole time? What does the seller do? Like, what's recommended there?
We prefer that the sellers aren't there because then the inspector can't get interrupted or anything like that. We have super access, so we can let ourselves into the home. And then the walkthrough process, clients would show up for the last 30 minutes of the inspection. And at that time, they can ask the inspector any questions that they have, state any concerns that they have, and it makes it a little easier. But if they can't make it to the walkthrough, that's totally fine too. The report's emailed to them, and the inspector can give them a call if they prefer that.
Yeah. And those walkthrough reports are great. And I'm always there if I'm representing one of the buyers, and it's just we go over. You can see it in real life. You can ask questions.
Right.
You know, there's always
we
problems.
always recommend that you try to make it to the walkthrough, and we do have 3 inspection time slots.
Yeah.
So, and if you need something a little later than our last inspection time slot, you can ask. And 90% of the time, we have an inspector that's willing to do a later inspection to accommodate the buyers.
Right. And that's one thing I love about you guys is you guys have multiple inspectors. So it's like, man, we just got this house under contract. We were only able to negotiate a week due diligence. Can you get us in the next day, couple days? Like you guys are always pretty flexible on making that happen. So that's super nice. Payment can happen before the inspection or after the inspection. And then when do the clients typically get the report?
So as long as the agreement's been signed and payment has been made, the report is emailed right from the house at the time of the inspection. There are certain cases where they don't have great reception and it can't be emailed right then, but they don't get it any later than that same day.
No, that's amazing. And then just keep in mind, like some of these other tests, like meth, that can take up to 4 days, or you can expedite it to where it's 2 days.
So in those cases, we try to get out 2 days before so that we can get the meth test to the lab, or the mold test to the lab, so that you don't, some people have a very short due diligence.
Yeah.
And so the radon test we'll set 2 days before, and we'll go in and do those extra services that same day as well.
Yeah.
So meth testing usually takes 3 to 5 business days. So that way you're getting it a couple days sooner.
Yeah.
And then mold takes 2 to 3 business days. And so you can expedite any of those services for an additional fee.
And radon's is radon 48 hours?
Radon's 48 hours.
Okay.
So if we set it 2 days before, you're getting your radon report. It'll be a separate report, but you'll get it the same day as your inspection as well.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So there's a lot of logistics that go into this, like coordinating with the seller and the buyers. And
but we take care of all that for your clients.
Yeah.
All they have to do is give us the information on them and the home, and then we'll reach out and make sure all that's scheduled so that it kind of eases the little stress that they may have going on of what's going on right now. What do I need to do? This is my first time buying a home, and I don't know the process. And we'll walk them through that.
No, and so I've had clients purchasing homes from out of state, and it's nice because your reports, like you can see like 3D of every room, like look around, and it's super handy.
So they know, because some people buy homes sight unseen. They're like, okay, I want this.
Yeah.
This is what I'm looking for. This is the area. This has got to be the perfect home. Now let's send the inspector in to see if there's any major issues that I have or that I need to worry about.
Right. No, that's awesome. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you feel like buyers or sellers should know more about the process that you can think of?
I feel like everybody's always stressed. Like, am I going to have all the information? As long as they have their information and some people don't even know who their buyer's agents are. And I'm that's a little concerning to me, but they're like, his name's Charlie. Okay. Well, what's Charlie's last name? Well, I don't know.
I'm not sure. That's
and I'm
funny.
like, okay, so, nobody ever has all the information. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, we can figure it out.
Yeah.
As long as they have the address and their information, your information, we can figure everything else out, and we'll take care of everything else.
Yeah. And one other point that I always try to do, like if you're a buyer getting ready to go through the inspection process, is be prepared that you're going to run into like this house of your dreams that you fell in love with. Like
there's no perfect house. Yeah. We inspect brand new homes that aren't perfect.
Right.
Like back in 2020, and everybody was building and supply on demand, and everything was being pushed out. There's no perfect homes.
Right.
Like, we're all human and we all make mistakes.
Right.
Like, even our home inspectors, like, we're not robots and we're not programmed to do things like, and it's just inevitable. Like
Right.
there's going to be a mistake
Yeah.
here and there made by whether it's the builder or the home inspector or whoever it was. Like we're all human, and just know that there's no perfect home out there.
Right.
So it's okay if there's little minor things. Like it's just whatever you're comfortable with fixing
Right.
or dealing with.
Well, and everything can be fixed. So I always bring out like, hey, you're going to see this big, long, hairy list, and there could be 50 to 100 items. Like there can be a lot of items on a home inspection report, most of them basic, but some of them like more large. And I would say, I think I've maybe on some new construction, but every home seems to have like a larger issue on it that buyers are like trying to wrap their heads around. It could be like the furnace and AC.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I feel like the most common thing that we find is like there wasn't an earthquake strap.
Right, yeah.
And people are like, why are you even calling that out?
Yeah.
Well, because it's part of the home inspection process. So
Yeah.
maybe it's not a big deal to you
Yeah.
and you don't think we should have called it out, or an expansion tank.
Yeah.
But those are requirements.
Or smoke alarms and
Yeah.
CO2 detectors.
All of
Yeah.
those things,
Yeah.
they may be little, but I promise you it still is something that needs to be called out.
Right.
Because they are requirements in certain parts of the home process.
And it's good to know, like, if there was an earthquake, and Utah very well, will have one in the future again, and, like, you don't want your water heater tipping over and, like, gas lines breaking and then,
Right.
like, your home
Yeah, you don't want to have to deal with the mess that
Yeah.
comes along with those things.
Yeah,
So,
so
yeah.
there definitely are reasons to that. So, yeah, if you're going through that process, just be aware there's not the perfect house out there. You're going to run into things, but everything can be worked out. You can negotiate. You can make it a win-win if you're working with the right people and have the right resources. And,
Right.
And that's where, like, your vendors list, like your preferred contractors, like if they need a HVAC person, like you and I both have contacts there.
Right.
And painters and like carpet people, like all those.
It's not an extra, oh my goodness, now I got to look for this person. I got to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
Like we usually try to keep it as simple as possible.
Right.
And yeah, if there's ever any questions that you guys have after the fact, you can always call in and we can have your home inspector call you. Or if you have questions, ask as many questions as you want. Like
for
when
sure,
you're
yeah.
scheduling, like it's not a big deal. Ask the questions, and we're all going through this together, and we're representing you as well. So I mean, we want to do our best, and so if there's anything that we can help you with in the process, like we're here for you.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome, Athena. Thank you. Where can people find out more about you and Nook and Cranny and connect with you guys?
So you can go to our website. It's www.nookandcranny.com, and you can schedule online through that. You can go through, we have a report, like a mock report, so that you can
cool.
see what it looks like on the website. You can call our office at 801-698-6467. But yeah, we're family owned and operated, so we're not a franchise. We do service the entire state of Utah and southern Idaho. But yeah, we just have guys all around the Wasatch Front. So
Perfect. Well, it's been great having you. Thank you for your wealth of wisdom.
awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
Awesome.